Welcome to Love and Lattes, the podcast designed for women who are ready to stop settling and start living a life full of authentic love, confidence, and real connection. I'm your host, Victoria, the self-love scientist, speaker, and coach, and I'm here to help you reclaim your power, deepen your relationships, and fall unapologetically in love with yourself. So grab your tea, your latte, or your favorite beverage, and let's get started.
All right, everyone. I'm so excited for this extra special episode today. We are welcoming back Brinn Langdale. Brinn has a background in astrology, just like we highlighted in our episode before. And today she's going to read my chart. And I wanted to share it with everybody because I think it's a very exciting, kind of like a deeper dive into who we are. And before we kind of get into it, Brinn, can you share a little bit about what astrology is and how actually reviewing this information can be very helpful?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, Victoria. I'm so excited to do this. And I really love astrology because it kind of is like a map of ourselves. It's when we look at where the different energies are in the sky at the exact moment that you were born, it really does lay out this map for your strengths, for your weaknesses, for your relationships, for your family dynamics, all sorts of stuff. And so the way it works is we use your exact birth time and place. And every single person in the world has their own unique birth chart based off of the time they were born and the place that they were born. Even twins are born at like two different times, right? And so because of that, we basically take a snapshot of the sky at the exact moment that you were born. So if we were looking, so like for example, like your birthday, April 28th? Okay, good. Yeah, April 28th, right? So April 28th, like in Virginia, at the exact time that you were born, we basically get to see what the stars and constellations looked like at that exact moment. And people are like, okay, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, they can really show us the different energies. It can show us how much fire, how much water, how much earth, how much air, all of these very fundamental elements. We see that come alive in your birth chart. And so different astrologers kind of take it to different levels, right? In this reading, we're really going to focus on the big three. And that is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. Yes, there is also your Jupiter and your Venus and your Saturn and your Pluto and your, Uranus. And there's all these different signs. But for the purpose of today's reading, we're really going to focus on those big three, how they represent in your life and how they connect to the different parts of you. So in the episode that we did, we kind of talked about these different parts. We have your inner critic, your inner child, and your adult self. And so the way I do astrology, because I'm a parts work therapist, I combine sort of this psychology parts element in with the astrology. And so that's the way that I do chart readings. Like I said, every astrologer kind of has their own little flavor. They kind of take it to all these different layers. And we could spend so much time on one chart. Like that is the beauty of it. There's so much to dive into. But like I said, for the purpose of this, we are going to connect these different parts of self with what we see in the birth chart.
Amazing. And thank you for that overview of astrology and what makes you very unique. And just like Brinn said, I'm going to have the links for how you can do the same thing with Brinn in the show notes. And then also our episode about talking about these inner critics in the notes as well. So, okay, Brinn, take it away.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And show you kind of what we're looking at here. And I'll try to describe it for those of you who aren't on video with us. So basically what we're looking at right here is a 360-degree view of the sky at the exact moment that you were born. So we're going to imagine that Earth is right there in the center, right smack dab in the center. And then this is a 360-degree view of the sky. So on the outside, we have all of these different symbols, okay? These symbols and their different colors. So red represents fire, green is earth, yellow is air, and blue is water. And those represent the different constellations. So, for example, you're a Taurus. Well, Taurus is a constellation. We see that constellation in the sky. And so this shows that the exact moment that you were born, the sun was placed in a position where it was in front of the Taurus constellation. Okay? And the same thing goes with all the other. We look at the moon. The moon for your chart was placed in front of the Sagittarius constellation, you know, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we read the chart. And the other symbol that we're going to look at is your rising sign, which isn't an actual like mass in our solar system. What it is it looks at where the horizon line was at the exact moment you were born. So for you, if we were to look at the horizon line and go all the way out, we would find the constellation of Cancer. So that represents your rising sign, also known as your ascending. So that kind of gives us a little bit of the lay of the land. On the outside, like I said, we have the constellations. We also have these little symbols that represent what the different masses in our solar system are. So like, for example, you can see the little moon symbol. We have the P stands for Pluto. You know, we have all these different symbols that are within those constellations. Now, another thing you're going to see on the chart is it's going to look like a pie, like we have all these pie pieces, right? It kind of looks like it's been divided up. It's divided up into 12 different sections. And those are the houses. You might have heard of, you know, houses, oh, something in the 10th house or something in the 11th house. Houses are basically kind of like the costume that your sign wears. So for example, you are a Taurus. Your Taurus is in the 10th house, and the 10th house is represented by Capricorn. So you kind of have this like Capricorn costume that is worn by your Taurus energy. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it would be different if your sun sign, say, for example, was in the 3rd house or the 7th house, right? You would be wearing the costume of that house. So just for you right now, it happens to be Taurus in the 10th house, which is the Capricorn house. Now, a lot of times people are like, oh, astrology doesn't really fit for me, or, oh, I don't really identify with my sun sign. And I'm like, okay, well, you have like 13 other signs and we need to know your house. And, you know, there's all these other layers to it. And so that's why whenever somebody's like, I don't really know about astrology, I'm like, well, let me read your whole chart and then let's talk. Because there's just so many different ways you can look at it. So that's the houses. Another thing that we're looking at right now is there's a bunch of lines. There's blue lines and red lines. We're not going to spend a ton of time on those today, but what they are is they are basically conversations that are happening between the signs. And the blue signs are more harmonious conversations and relationships, and the red lines are more kind of contentious relationships. Everybody has blue and red. It, you know, there's no chart that doesn't have that. And it's just about the different relationships and how they kind of interact with each other. Okay, so as I go, I will just say this. I love having like discussion around this. So if I say anything that you're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, then like feel free to let me know to like whatever degree you're comfortable elaborating. And if there's something where you're like, actually that doesn't really resonate with me, then please let me know that too, because I might be able to find like either it might be the words I'm using. It also might be because of different relationships that are happening to these signs within your chart. And we can kind of dig a little deeper into the chart and figure out why that might be true for you.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So please feel free to ask questions, engage, share, tell me what's tracking, what's not. And so we're not just listening to my voice constantly for the next hour.
Amazing. Yeah. This was already like, I'm very excited. And for those of you who are listening, and then eventually I will have the ability to upload the video so you can actually follow along. But thank you again, Brinn, for really reviewing this, because visually I think it can be overwhelming for someone who's doing it on their own. I know I am that person. So I'm really glad you're here with me.
Yeah, when people first look at a chart, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like I don't even know what any of that
There's a lot
means."
happening here.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you don't know how to read it. Like you don't know how to read the language. It's astrology is a language. And once you understand the language, once you can like build, it's just basic building blocks. It's like learning the ABCs. Once you have the ABCs, then you can start to form words. Once you have words, you can start to form sentences. It's the same exact thing with astrology.
Right.
And so once you know the language, it makes it a lot easier. So we're going to start pretty broad and then narrow down. And when we start broad, what I mean is I'm going to look at the overall energy of your chart. Okay. So what I've done is I've added up how much fire, earth, air, and water you have. I've also added up how much cardinal, fixed, and mutable energy is within the chart. And I'll explain what all that means in a minute. And when I look at your chart, I really see a lot of balance. One first thing I notice is that you have your sun, moon, and rising are all three different elements. We have earth, we have fire, and we have water. Okay, so that to me represents balance. We have Taurus, Sag, Cancer, and that's the first place I notice the balance. The second place I notice it is you have the same amount of fire, earth, and water in your chart. The same exact amount. Okay? I'll explain a little bit more. So what I've done is I've added up all of these four, and if we were to divide these four, it would be the average would be about 5 or 6 each because they total 23. You have 7 points in earth, 7 points in fire, 7 points in water, and 2 points in air.
Wow.
So that's just like really interesting because sometimes I'll read a chart and it'll be like 13 points and then 0 points or like 1 point. And so for you to have like 7, 7, 7 and then 2 is just like really interesting at how balanced those energies are. So like, for example, I'll go into a little bit more about fire and earth and water and air and what all that means. So fire is creative, charismatic. Like think of fire. Fire is sparky. We think of people with fiery personalities or fiery tempers, right? We get those words from these elements. And so this to me means you have a solid amount of this, right? You're not way over the top with it and you're not low in this amount. You actually have a really solid capacity for channeling the creative energy, the inspired energy, the motivated, the just kind of like natural joy and energy that comes with like being a fire sign. And sometimes like kind of more of the flip side of this can be like impulsive, reactive, angry, temper, very like sporadic. But both of those parts exist for everybody. And just kind of depending on what situation is there, how much awareness there is around that. But yeah, I'm curious, does that like resonate with you when it comes to like the fire qualities?
I never would have considered that, but when you started listing the different characteristics, I immediately thought of just, in the past couple years, like launching different businesses and like even for this year, like coming up with new ones and always finding that little bit of creativity. So that's immediately what I thought about. Impulsive sometimes. Like I'll be super transparent, like, yeah, sometimes.
Uh-huh. And we'll talk more about your fire moon, which is something I can totally relate to in a little bit. But I could see that's a lot of where your fire energy is coming from is in your moon sign. And then you mentioned business. So in addition, again, you're Taurus in the Capricorn house, and you have 7 points in Earth. Earth is all about money and material and financial and like career and business and being very like pragmatic and logical and goal oriented and like, you know, having the to-do list and like doing every step and in order to achieve that goal. And that can be really amazing qualities, especially if you're pairing it with this, like you said, with these like creative ventures. And then, you know, the flip side of this Earth can be kind of like stuck in the mud, right? Digging your heels in, stubborn, feeling heavy, weighted down, you know, but also like wanting things that are like cozy and yummy and indulgent and, you know, that kind of thing. It's very, very much of like the material world, not saying materialistic, but more of just like of the material world.
I can definitely agree to all of that. I would say I have like personally just 3 years ago when I was out on my own from my divorce, I think the biggest thing for me was creating security in myself. And that has been always in the back of my mind, like even to this day, like how can I create stability and balance while also, you know, you mentioned all like the very cozy, like oozy, yummy stuff. That's a very aesthetic thing that I have in my life now. It's like soft, clean sheets, you know. Today I'm wearing a really pretty flowy skirt and hydrating. And then when it comes to the stubbornness, for sure. I've always been, you know, it was something I picked up even when I was dating and in relationships where it's like learning to express my feelings. But sometimes I can be a little hard-headed about it. I'm like, no. And so yeah, the Taurus is there.
100%. Yeah, I love it. And then the water, again, 7 points in water. So like a solid capacity. And this relates to your rising sign. And water is of like the soul, the emotional, the spiritual, being very empathic, intuitive, sensitive. And then the flip side of that can be kind of like icy and cold and cut off and withdrawn, kind of like observer, like I'm just gonna sit here and watch everybody before, sort of like a wallflower energy, like I'm just gonna kind of watch and observe and take it in. But yeah, water wants to flow, right? So like you have this capacity for like the flowy and the just kind of go with things, but then you also have the same amount of capacity for earth, which is the container. So you have all of that like built in within you, which is actually really powerful. The fact that you have all of this. So like, for example, I have a lot of fire and water in my chart, and I have 1 point of earth. Just one. Just one. So like for me, I tend to like attract people that are very earthy because it tends to like balance me out. Whereas for you, you have that within yourself. You can be your own container a little bit more naturally. And it also, to me, what I'm really getting is like you have these sparks of inspiration, and then you actually have the practical, more logical tools of the earth to like get it done. And then while also keeping the very kind of like feminine, flowy, inspirational, while tuning into yourself and being like, okay, what do I need in this? Without getting too bogged down in like any of those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads to cardinal, fixed, and mutable, because it's actually leads really nicely into that, because cardinal energy is the initiating energy, kind of like the starter, getting things going. And you have 9 points of cardinal energy. And again, this is out of 23. So, and let me back up a minute. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. People aren't usually as familiar with what those words mean. Basically, we're all pretty familiar with like, okay, Taurus, earth, right? Like we know that there's kind of like some earth energy, fire energy, water, air going on. Well, every sign also has a quality to it. So for example, Taurus is a fixed energy. It's earth and it's fixed. Whereas Sagittarius, your moon sign, is mutable energy. That means movement, change. And your Cancer rising is cardinal energy, which is the initiator. So again, we have all 3 represented in your big 3. We have this balance. We have Taurus, which is fixed, which is kind of like, if you think about like a big barge on the water, it takes a really long time for a barge to change direction, right? And that's kind of like the bullheaded, stubborn, dig my feet in, I'm just gonna do things the way I've always done the things. And that's fixed energy. But then we also have cardinal energy, which is like, I think about it like if we were to use the boat analogy, it's like the canoe pushing off from the shore. It gets things started, it gets things going, it moves you in that forward direction. And again, you have 9 points in this cardinal energy. Then we also have the moon sign, which is mutable, which is change. You have 6 points in that. Mutable is like a jet ski. It's like, I'm gonna go here and move here and change here and go here. It's sort of this like kind of like the like ADHD energy almost. But we really need, in fact, every chart I've ever read of somebody who had ADHD or suspected that they had ADHD all had super, super high signs of mutable energy. And this is the person that has like tons of tabs open on their desktop. They have like, or maybe like tons and tons of like bookmarks, or starting projects and not finishing them, that kind of stuff. But you have a balanced energy of all of it. So being able to have the idea, initiate it, get it going, follow through with it, and then adjust as you need to. That's pretty amazing right there. So I'm curious, like what goes on for you when I say all this?
It's interesting you mentioned that, and I don't know why, but when you were talking about like the movable like energy, I immediately thought about how up until recently I've been traveling a lot, and then also like I'm in the process of moving, and I always have that feeling of moving somewhere like almost, I would say every year, if not every 2 years. So that's what I thought of immediately. When it comes to like execution process wise, I do love like finishing a project. Like before we got on the call, we talked about how like, oh, I just got invited to speak and now I got to start doing my process. I got to set up travel accommodations, blah, blah, blah. So you can now see that.
Yeah, it's all happening. And so I can imagine, because you have more fixed energy than mutable. So I could see how like, yeah, completing that thing off the to-do list, checking the thing off the to-do list, getting it done probably feels so good.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. But then also having the awareness of like, oh, hey, maybe this isn't quite working. Maybe I should shift it.
Hmm.
Maybe I should change this. Oh, maybe I should like, that is also really important because sometimes with a lot of fixed energy, it can be like, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it, and this is the way I'm going to keep doing it. And even if it's not I'm going to kind of beat the dead horse, right? And then I'm going to keep beating the dead horse.
Yeah. It's more like, well, like you said, I think I'm more attuned to being open with that flow state. Like, some people use that phrase like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. I'm more like, well, I don't want to throw too much, so let's try it this way first. And then if it doesn't, after a while, like doing it over and over again, it does take me a little bit longer to recognize that pattern, and then I'll make the change.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I like that. Kind of sounds a little bit more scientific, even to be like, I don't want to change too much at once because then we don't know what actually is working. Or like, I don't want to throw too much spaghetti at the wall because like we're not really sure. So I'll just like do this and then incrementally sort of like shift as I need.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. All right. So that is kind of what I'm getting for like the overall energies of the chart. So now we're going to kind of dive in a little bit more and talk some specifics about the sun, the moon, and the rising. So we'll start with the sun sign. I'm curious, what all do you know about like Taurus energy?
Taurus energy is, and this is what I know with the combination of what people have told me, it's nurturing, it's grounding, it's very homey-esque, like the feelings of being home, and stubborn. We're also very like the one of my favorite jokes is like, it's like, it's a bowl, so we're constantly grazing and eating, so food is like a second love language to me.
Hmm.
And then also we have that little bit of like luxury, lushy, aesthetic stuff. So we do enjoy like the fine things in life, but I would say to like an extent, like a capacity. Like we don't overdo it, but we do invest in like really like where investments are important for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. Yeah, Taurus, this, kind of the fixed, earthy. I always think of Ferdinand the Bull.
Yeah.
Like I know it was a children's book, and I think at some point they made it into like a movie. And it's just this energy of like Ferdinand the Bull is this bull in Spain that they try to get to go fight, and all he wants to do is sit under the trees and smell the flowers. And that is like quintessential Taurus energy. I want to be a pacifist. I don't want to fight. I want to like,
Lover, not a fighter.
yeah, yeah, total lover.
We can look like from a distance, people might think we have that black cat energy, but then behind closed doors, we're like sweatpants. I've got two like I have one vase of roses right down like on my other desk, and then I have a bouquet of roses in my bedroom. So the flowers are there.
Yes, I love it. Oh, that's beautiful. And especially with this like Capricorn energy that you have going on, it really feels like career and business. And it's also going to be really important for like almost like life's work. Like career doesn't have to be like, oh, I just kind of clock in and clock out, but more like this is really like these are part of my values. Is like the work that I do is represented in my like these it correlates with my values, and also just the long steady climb, right? So Capricorn energy is the mountain goat that climbs the mountain. And so there's this so kind of combining that with like the bull, right? Of like, this is might take some time. We're here for the marathon, not the sprint,
Mm.
right? And like, we're gonna like really set up a good foundation to build upon. And that might take a while, but you're gonna do it, and you're gonna do it right, even if it takes longer.
I like that. I feel like I'm starting to, especially like from a like as a professional, yeah, that's something that completely resonated. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And the thing with the sun sign, so with the sun sign, we really want to think about like this being like who you are, like when you're in your element, so to speak, right? There's we're not worrying about fear. We're not putting on any airs. Like we are just being ourselves. And this is why I connect it with the adult self. Because if we look at these different parts of us, that's where we feel most connected to self, is our sun sign. And this can also be related to father figure in our family. And so I would imagine, I mean, just what I would imagine would be more of kind of like a really like steady, solid father figure that is kind of a good foundation, and, you know, very like business, earthy energy. I don't know. That's kind of just what's kind of coming up for me right now.
Yeah, what's interesting is my dad did work in the like money
Mm,
for his career. Like he was very focused on like economics, and he I learned this like much later, but basically like I followed his like mindset when it came to, got to go to school, got to get the government job, blah blah blah. But his even though I may not be working in that kind of field or profession, it's more of like in the back of my head that security, the safety net, make it make sense kind of thing
yeah.
that's always been there, and like picking up some of his habits.
Yeah, the security bit is going to be really important for you. Financial security, home security, like feeling grounded in that. Like, I'd be curious how it does feel for you to kind of like move around, and like if that is kind of dysregulating for you.
I think so. I feel like with the recent moves I had, so first, my first house when I was married, like I manifested that house. Like it was my dream home. It was
Mm,
in the woods, like it was beautiful. And then when I separated, I found my next home very quickly. And again, it was something that I had in my head. I had put it together. I had seen evidence of it, and it was mine. And then when I came to DC like 2 years later, I saw this place and I was like, wow, what a very luxury. What if I could have that? And again, I just put myself out there, and I started recognizing that, like my current home it's a lot more, it's not in the forest, it's not surrounded by greenery. So I have felt a little like it's got its perks, but there are things I miss. Like I miss hearing birds, and I have to walk to be surrounded by trees. And now with this upcoming move, so I'll be moving in a couple weeks, and so now it's becoming like, okay, what are my needs? I'm like, I gotta be with trees, and I want to be, have a little more foundation. Nature needs to be there somewhere. The interesting part, though, I think your question was like how I feel. I'm at a point now where I don't know why, but as, I'm not nervous, even though it's like, hey, you're kind of on a timeline. And while maybe some folks may have that kind of approach, for me, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like, again, with the steps, like first I'm looking, then I reach out. And then it is kind of like you step into the space, and I always just knew, I knew when I stepped into my house. I knew when I found my first apartment, and then when I saw my second apartment, that was more of like this could be mine. And like, I deserve to have this. Why not me? So,
mm. Yeah, I love that. And what came up for me is like, it almost feels like you have the groundedness inside you.
Yes, I
So,
carry home with me in my body.
yeah.
Yeah, that was something I created when I first moved out on my own. I had to create that stability and security within myself.
Yeah.
And that's become very important to me even and I think it's interesting though, because like as a Taurus, we want security, but aside from like a business or making money and having a roof over my head, which are important, it's also something I need for myself before I engage in relationships. Like when I was dating, I recognized early on, I was like, oh, it's not working because I keep putting this ideology that they have to be secure for me,
Mm-hmm.
is, then I recognized that I wasn't secure in myself. So once I became more secure, then I was ready for that relationship. I was like, okay, now I'm secure. I don't have to rely or put this, well, at least he makes more money than I do. It's like, nope, that's not the case anymore. It's more like I'm secure enough with myself, whether the relationship comes or not.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. That's definitely something I've had to learn, especially having no earth, and having attracting I will often attract partners who have a lot of earth qualities, but then it's like, okay, well, am I just outsourcing
Mhm.
and relying on their earth energy and kind of like depending on that? And where can I create that in my own self? So I really love that you're talking about that and seeing how that shows up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it show or illustrate relationships or love in the chart? Is that something we can see?
Yeah, well, the first part to look at for that is your Venus sign. And your Venus sign is in Gemini, which is your only air in your entire chart. And so that to me means that you're looking for in the Aquarius house. Okay, so in the 11th house. So you got like the double air going on in there, which I would imagine like having like good conversation, talking, intellectual stimulation, um, having somebody like look really nice, like aesthetically pleasing. Oh my gosh, you're laughing because you totally know what I mean. Yeah, yeah. And also for yourself, like aesthetics are going to be really important and valuable to you. Things that look nice, look pretty, look attractive, are appropriate. Like, somebody who can like be appropriate and, you don't have to worry what's going to come out of their mouth as they're sitting around at a dinner party or, something like that.
Amazing. Yeah, all of that. And also like the communication actually is a huge, like that's a big thing. And it's taken me time to recognize, we talked about earlier, that stubbornness, which still does show up, but it's having a partner that's like, it is safe for me to have this conversation with you. We have to make sure we do say the things versus holding on to it and building that resentment. And I have learned also with all this unlearning and learning is I do desire to be with a person that, I am attracted to, but it is like that aesthetic, but then also falling in love with who they are as a person. Just to add that little corny bit there. Like, yes, you're very, very attractive, very sexy, and that's great. And also, like, I fall in love with your heart at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your moon sign. So the moon sign is always fun for everybody. Our moon sign represents our subconscious beliefs, patterns, and this I connect with the inner child because that is the part of us that holds these subconscious beliefs and wounds. And it's also the place that like we really need to kind of listen to like how we recharge ourselves also. And like when we're really when we're in our feels, when we're really feeling it, when we're, what do we need? How do we nourish ourselves, and how do we really kind of self-soothe? So for you, we have your Sagittarius in the Leo house. So we got double, actually, every, let's see. Yeah, so I'm just kind of connecting this right now. Your chart is aligned with like whatever the element is, it's going to align with a house that's also that same element. So like, for example, the Taurus is aligned with earth energy in the Capricorn, the 10th. Your Sagittarius moon is aligned with fire in the 5th. And that's how it is for every single house. Anyway, so fire sign. I get this. I'm a fire sign in a firehouse. So fire, we talked about, fire being really big and bold, especially Sagittarius here, especially Sag. And what I'm maybe even imagining is like, as a kid, maybe some like big energy. Like, did you ever like throw temper tantrums or like have big meltdowns or like have really big energy?
I feel like as a child, I will say for evidence purposes, I didn't see or hear meltdowns, but my parents did tell me like one time I like freaked the hell out because a bug landed on my arm and I like screamed at it. And then I had the ability to like my parents were always encouraging to be outside. And I did notice that when I was really young, I that's where all that creativity came from, like having a big imagination and creating storylines. And I grew up with siblings, so having this like very big social ring to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you think about feeling, kind of like feeling feelings, with fire, there's an energy that either that energy needs to go somewhere.
Mhm.
Like you feel it in your body. Like maybe there's like heat, or maybe you get like a flush of energy, or face gets hot, or like, something like that. And like that energy needs to go somewhere. And so what this can look like is either like it can either explode or it implodes.
Mhm.
So I know for me, kind of growing up, I did throw a lot of temper tantrums. I did have a lot of like big energy, but then I got to a point where like it was clear that that wasn't really acceptable in my house. So then I started imploding, and
Yeah.
it turned into more like self-loathing, self-hatred, body hatred, actually self-harming. It was like everything turned inward, and I kind of like numbed out because it was so overwhelming to like feel those big feelings, because and so I would find ways to express it, like running or journaling or dancing or singing. Like there was a way that it needed to like get out of me.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if any of that kind of resonates with you.
It's interesting because that self-loathing part, I definitely recall doing a lot of that. Like that, the whole like where it was going in, was definitely during the times when I was married because like I was unhappy, but I wasn't willing to sit with those feelings. I was like, no, 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 let me swallow down my pride kind of thing
Yeah.
and make it go away. And then much later in life, once I was like, working on myself, and if I did have those really big feelings, I do know like I would go to the gym and like listen to very heavy metal and like the guy screaming in my ear, but I'm feeling so much better because I have all this pent up rage. But the interesting part is like, even when I feel my big feelings now, I think now I start looking at activities that will help like calm it in a way, which is interesting. Like whether it's doing a more deeper yin yoga class or I'll light some candles, or cry, really. I'm like a crier now.
Yeah, let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I can totally see like, yeah, the rage at the gym with the metal going. It's like, yes.
Or journaling, yeah. Like there
Yeah.
was, I did journal actually last night, but then there was an entry I had read over when I was like really upset, and I just took it into my journal. And I was like, things may be, I can't control everything, but blah, just putting it somewhere.
Yeah. Or like talking. Do you ever find you like call up like a girlfriend or something and you're just like kind of need to like vent or get it out?
I feel like I will do that, but I don't do it at the capacity that I think is pretty normal for people, because now I feel that I will sit there and try to make it make sense with myself. But if I'm like down to like my last I'm like, am I like crazy or something? And then I'll call up someone and be like, this is what's happening, and da, 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 and like I need my feelings validated, and they're like, okay, okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so yeah, it sounds like for you it's a lot more like inward
Yeah.
than like outward.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, got to go one of two ways. We got to go somewhere.
Gotta go somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But I imagine maybe for the inner child, do you ever have like the I'm too much, I'm too big, I'm too much for other people to handle kind of feeling?
Um, I I don't think so. I think every so often I will have these feelings of insecurity, like I may not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning to, like you said, like what's important for me is to like be myself. And I'm learning and continually learning, like, what does that look like without feeling those feelings of like I have to shrink or hide, because I did hide for so long.
Yeah. So this is the part of you that doesn't want to hide anymore. Like Sagittarius is designed, it's like there's three different fires, right? There's Aries, Leo, and Sag. Aries is like the match, it's the initiator, gets things going. Leo is like the campfire, and Sagittarius is like a forest fire.
Oh, we on fire.
So it is big energy. And Leo, being in the Leo house, there's this energy of also being in the spotlight
Mhm.
and like being okay with that, being on stage, being the center of attention. And if you grew up a little quieter, maybe, or a little like, not be seen, not be heard kind of stuff, then this is really going to like stretch you and is like asking to like really step in to that more like leadership and big energy that is within you.
Mm, I can agree with that. I think even as a younger child with siblings, like having those feelings of like, my parents had to give attention to multiple kids, especially when they were much younger. As I grew older, it's like, wait a minute, like, please don't forget about me, kind of thing, like no child left behind, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so that leads really well into your Cancer rising because the rising sign is kind of like who we are when well, for one, it's the role you play in your family. And two, it's like where it's kind of like the mask we wear when we like leave our house in the morning, right? We like get ready, we do our thing. It's kind of like the Taurus is the one like at home, like getting ready for the day, and then you step out in the world and it's like, oh, I'm showing up in this like Cancer energy. And Cancerian energy is very feminine. It's very flowy and deep and emotional and sensitive, and that's kind of what I was saying with like kind of like I'm just gonna sort of hang back and observe and like watch what like, but also like very much like, oh, I can like walk into a room and like feel the vibe.
Yeah.
And to be able to like almost, what I'm getting is almost like this like caretaking energy for your family, for like whether it's like siblings or parents, like being the emotional carrier for the family.
That's an interesting part because I feel like for a long time I was, and then when I moved out, got married, and then moved around a couple times, I wasn't as available, and that was something I did. And then you said the cancers, like how we dress, definitely on the femi flowy. Again, I love that we're having this conversation. I have a flowy skirt on, and when I do find myself in public places, though, I do a really good job. Like I'll show up very feminine, but then I also will I'll, I listen a lot. Like I sit there and listen a lot more than I speak. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, the observer,
Yeah.
right? The kind of that wallflower that's just like, okay, I'm just gonna like take it all in and feel it out, vibe it out, like is this safe? Is this not safe? And but yeah, like definitely in the family, what number sibling are you?
I'm number two.
Okay. Yeah. So like very nurturing. Like Cancerian energy is very nurturing. So I don't know if there was any like taking care of your younger siblings, kind of that vibe going on. Yeah, and it makes sense that like it would be a lot more, when you're actually in the house than like out of the house. But I can also see this being, I connect this with our inner critic part of ourselves. And there's almost this energy of like, okay, don't be too sensitive. Don't be, oh, are you being dramatic? Or like, I could see kind of like, or you should you should be a caretaker. You should take care of these people. You should be more empathetic. You should be more nurturing. You should be more feminine and flowy, and like kind of taking it into like an extreme where like this could just be naturally who you are, but this is kind of, but it kind of turns into pressure or like effort, right? Like it takes a little bit more effort to like show up in that really like open, nurturing, empathetic way. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think about how like I do have that inner critic where it's like it's easy for me sometimes to like I could overthink or I'll become very self-conscious. Like I'm not feeling as feminine as I'd like to. Um, I don't do it anymore. I used to be very like self-conscious of my body, and now I'm like, oh, I love her, but I'm still learning how to love her and like show
Mm-hmm.
her. When it comes to the family, I don't know if I necessarily feel that guilt, but I do think I wrestle with that mindset. Not just in the family though. I think it's just like an overall, like more of a livelihood. Like, am I doing enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like enough for other people, enough in general. Am I giving, like kind of giving? Yeah. And that's like, right, the flip side of all of this. When there's a lot of water, water is very naturally nurturing and giving and caring and all of that. But the flip side of that is like, well, you should be more, or boundaries are bad, or like you shouldn't have these boundaries, or you should, that those are all things that like the Taurus energy has like learned how to navigate. But from this energy of the Cancerian, it doesn't want those boundaries, right? Water doesn't want boundaries. Water just wants to flow and flow and flow and flow and flow. And Taurus is the adult one saying, hey, let's put some parameters here. These are important. This is going to keep us nourished and not just like deplete us. And the Cancerian energy is like, okay, like, but I should be this and I should be that, and this is how I should be in the family, and this is But luckily, we have that adult self to have a little bit different perspective.
Amazing. I can definitely agree with that, especially now. Like this year, especially my family and I have been working on our relationship because before with the separation, I put a huge wall up,
Mm.
like no, because it's a shock factor. So everyone's kind of going through their feels about the situation. But for myself, it was doing it alone and then thriving and growing from that point. And now I'm at a state where I have a much healthier relationship with my family, but we're doing it very slowly. It's like, it was so great to see you again. And again, it's fighting with well, you should see them more often. It's like, well, also I need to have this boundary here so I don't, overstimulate myself, being someone who's like still healing this relationship.
Yeah. And that's beautiful that you're really listening to yourself. And it's a testament to the work that you've done and the work that you're doing in the world to be that example for others who might have a little bit harder time listening to themselves and what they truly need.
Yeah, this is amazing, Brinn. And I just noticed we've been talking for almost an hour, and I don't want to take up all of your amazing expertise. Is there anything else you think would be really exciting or fun to share before we wrap up today's conversation?
Well, it kind of like one point is that this energy between the earth, so earth and water, kind of like what we're talking about, the Cancerian versus the Taurus. We also see this, you have an opposition between Taurus and Scorpio with Jupiter. Jupiter is where you naturally shine. It's your big energy. It's the thing that just like naturally comes to you. And that's in Scorpio. So like this whole like depth, feeling, watery, truth seeking, all of that is just this natural energy, but it's in direct opposition to your Taurus, which means that this is the second placement that we're talking about where there's kind of this inner conflict. So just something to be aware of like these parts of you exist, right? The part of you that is more of the deep, soulful, intuitive, spiritual, flowy, and the part of you that has, those harder boundaries and the practical and the business, like those are very much there, and they might feel conflicting inside of you at points. And so just to like kind of name that, normalize it, acknowledge it as, yeah, these different parts sometimes want different things, right? They want different things. One wants to totally merge and, have no boundaries and give and give and give. And the other one is like, no, that's not actually healthy for us. So yeah, so that's showing up too. And then the last point is like, you don't have a ton of air in your chart, but it is where your IC is, which means you came in with natural air elements. You came into this lifetime already having mastered that in the last lifetime. And that's why the aesthetics, the like, yeah, all the things we mentioned with your Venus, those were things that already come naturally to you. And then where you're going into this lifetime is actually more into fire. You're going into Aries. Aries is very leadership oriented. It's very like lead the charge. And so I would just really encourage you to continue to step into that creativity, continue to step into the leadership, continue to step into the fiery parts of you that exist, that are already there. And then like, how can you just like continue to like cultivate that even more? Because that is where you're going in this lifetime.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And this was a lot of fun. And again, I'm hoping people listening are like getting just as excited or even finding parts are like, yeah, I can see that in her. Or for my friends listening and knowing like, yeah, that's also factual. But everyone else listening, I hope you enjoyed this very special episode. And again, I'm going to have Brynn's contact information so you can get your own reading too to understand love and exchange, these different parts and how it relates to your astro chart. So thank you again, Brinn. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Victoria.